Hey guys, welcome back to my new episode of NSCA Chapter 1. I hope you are watching all my chapters episode by episode. If not, please do that, right? Because every chapter has a connection with the next, so that will help you understand it better and align us probably for a better understanding, right? So today we'll be covering the topic, and that's the fiber types, right? So we all have muscles, and muscles will have muscle fiber types, and it's important for you to know what muscle fiber type you have, because this will help you with selecting the right sport or activity that you want to participate and become successful. That's most important, right? And accordingly you can plan your training, right? So here are three simple, I will say, this is where you can categorize your muscle fiber type. So everyone's born with it. You cannot change it. You can just improve with training, right? A cannot be become B, B cannot be become A, right? All that you can do is you can be A plus, B plus, right? You can be better at what you are, but knowing what you have will give you that edge that is needed when it comes to becoming successful, right? Or I will say the defining factor when it comes to participating and winning a sport, right? So here they this column represents characteristic. This is the fiber type. So basically it can be categorized into two, right? One is type 1, the second is type 2A and type 2X, right? So here the characteristics of the motor neuron size, right? So it's the signal. The type 1 will receive small signal, type 2A receive will require large signal, and type 2X will also require large signal. It's like you want to wake up someone, right? So what you can do is you can simply call him by his name, and if he wakes up, that's okay. But otherwise, if he doesn't, if he's in deep sleep, you may have to shout loud, right? So you'll have to shout loud, and then he wakes up with a shock, right? And the other thing, what you can do is you can just pour water upon him, right? That's the third way or approach that you can use, right? So for activities, right? For recruitment point of view, say na, to, if threshold, right? What you need, this will have a low threshold, this will have an intermediate threshold, and this will have a high threshold, right? So threshold is the limit, right? The tolerance. So this has low, this has intermediate, and this has high, right? So the nerve conduction velocity, right? So nerve conduction is basically the signaling, right? So the signaling for this, for someone to wake you up, you don't have to shout out loud, right? Just you can call his name slowly. So this type 1 is basically will function with nerve conduction, right? Cell signaling, which is slow, right? For type 2A is fast, and type 2X is even faster, which is, I can say, fastest, right? So now it's contraction speed. This contracts slow, this contracts fast, this contracts faster. It's like taking the example of sprint, right? If you want to run fast, what you want is you want large signal to be sent very fast, right? It's like large motor neurons sent fast, which is here, right? So that your muscle contracts at a very fast speed, allowing you to run faster, right? Which is sprinting, right? If you're doing powerlifting, right, lifting a lot of loads, or I'll say if it's weightlifting, you will have to lift a lot of, I'll say heavy loads, right? For that, what you need is a large signal, right? Moving fast, helping the muscle to contract faster, resulting into better performance, right? So now if you take example of running a marathon or walking, what you need is small signal. You don't need it fast, and you don't need strong contraction, or you don't need fast contraction for you just to walk, right? So simple, right? So now relaxation speed, right? So now this can get relaxed slow, this relaxes fast, and this relaxes faster, right? So again, you don't have to go really worry about relaxation speed, right? All that you do is you just relax, and everything's going to get relaxed. What's important is fatigue resistance, right? See, here it's small signal, moving slowly, I would say not so fast contraction. So now this will help you to stay, or this will help you, this will have more endurance, right? This Again, everything is fast. The endurance is going to be intermediate, right? Here, the endurance, everything's running fast, right? Large motor neurons. The recruitment threshold is also high. The which is what causing it to fatigue faster, right? So now, if you have type X, you can run fast, but you tire faster. If you have type one, then you can not run fast, right? What I mean is you cannot sprint or you cannot be a good sprinter. You can participate well into sports like marathoner that will help you run longer because you are more fatigue resistance, right? You don't tire faster, right? So the sports that requires endurance will benefit when you have type 1 sports that requires intermediate endurance, right? Like 400 meters, 800 meters, 1200 meters, and or anything else. You will need to have a type 2A muscle fiber, right? And sports like sprint, where you don't really need endurance, right? Because it's about running fast and running for a very short time, right? So it doesn't matter even if you have low endurance, right? Now, when it comes to sports like marathon, where you don't need high force production, so type 1 will help you with sports like marathon, where you don't need high force production, but then sports like 400 meters, 800 meters will need more force production. So again, type 2A can give you intermediate, right? And type 2X is sports like powerlifting, sports like javelin throw, sports like shot put, sports like sprint, right? Where you need high force production. So these are, so see, you cannot change what you have, right? You can improvise, or you can, I will say, training will help you become better at what you have already, right? So it's like a Maruti cannot become a Mercedes, a Mercedes cannot become a Maruti, right? So what you can do is you can just build in better, right? So now the power output compared to your type 1 is the low, I is the lowest, type 2A is intermediate, and type 2X is high, right? So aerobic enzyme, as the name suggests, aerobic. So aerobic will be benefiting mostly with type 1. This may have slightest aerobic enzyme content, right? But then the type 2X has the lowest enzyme content because it's mostly anaerobic, right? So anaerobic enzyme content will be exactly opposite. Endurance is not anaerobic, it's completely aerobic. So here it's low, here it's high, and here it's the highest, right? Because the anaerobic enzyme content, which will help you produce energy at short, we'll see at in short period of time, you need to have that enzyme going on, right? So the next thing, that is your sarcoplasmic reticulum complexity, right? So now for muscle contraction to be happening at slower level, you don't need that to be too complex, right? So it is quite low. Here it's intermediate and high, and here it's the highest, right? So capillary density, see, if it's endurance, you need more blood supply. And for more blood supply, you need more capillaries. So now type 1 has the highest amount of capillary because it usually will benefit with endurance sport, right? Here it's intermediate because running fast and long will also need some blood supply. I will say good amount of blood supply and good amount of oxygen. So here it's intermediate. For sprinting, you don't really need oxygen, right? You can do it without oxygen. So here type 2X will have the lowest capillary density. So the myoglobin, right? Myoglobin is again muscle, something to do with muscle. So here it's high blood supply, so high content of myoglobin. Here the low content myoglobin, and then this is the lowest, right? So mitochondria size and density. We know that mitochondria is the powerhouse of cell, which is important for energy production. So here endurance is aerobic. So a lot of capillaries resulting into a lot of mitochondria, right? So you're having good number of the powerhouse, the engines, right? Here it's intermediate because it is again running fast as well as running long, right? So here the quantity and the size and density is intermediate, manageable, right? Here it's the low because it's only fast and it's not long, right? So type 2X. the fiber diameter, right? So here the fiber diameter is small, right? The fiber diameter, the size of the fiber, muscle fiber is intermediate, and this muscle fiber size is large, right? So if you look at it from color point of view, what you see is type 1 is red because it has higher capillary density, it has high blood supply that makes it more endurance favored, and red, this type 2A is mostly white or red because it has low blood supply, and this favors, I will say, uh, I will say strength endurance, right? So it's about strength as well as endurance, right? I'll say speed endurance, right? So that way you have blood supply, but then comparatively low as compared to your type 1. Type 2X is white, so it has the lowest blood supply because it does not matter whether it's aerobic, it's mostly function and aerobic because it helps you in high, I would say, uh, faster contractions resulting into high force production, right? So now if you have type 2X, you better participate in sports like shot put, javelin throw, sprints, etc., which is high force and less duration, right? If you've got type 1, then you may want to participate in sports like cycling, running, marathon, right? Because it's low force and large duration, right? Longer duration, right? If you are into sports like 400 meters, 800 meters, or maybe someone playing at the midfield of a football match, right? Who needs to run fast and who also needs to run long. You may want to have a type 2A, right? So again, having this is unfortunately a default option set by the god, right? You cannot change what you have. You just need to know what you have and train accordingly and choose the right sport, right? So if you see the motor recruitment pattern, right, what you see is here, it's the order in which muscle fibers are activated during a movement or exercise, right? So key point is small to large size principle, right? For activities that are easy, right? That are easy, like walking, sitting, running, or maybe cycling, right? At a lower speed, your body will preferably recruit small motor units because the activity is not that intense, right? But then as you start doing those activities with, I'll say, as you start increasing the intensity of the activities, what is going to happen? They are going to add larger units, right? So it's like, its simple example is low force. You will be using your slow twitch muscle fibers first, right? This can be activities like walking, posture, right? For that, you need is a slow twitch, right? Muscles that basically favors activities that are more endurance based and less power, right? But then if you choose activities like sprint or powerlifting or weightlifting, they will require high force, right? For that, your body will be mostly recruiting fast twitch fibers, right? So now, if it's heavy lifting or sprinting, your body will be generating high force. For that, what you need is fast twitch, which will help you generate more power, but then they are not so great with endurance, right? They are bad with endurance, right? So now what you see is gradual increase in strength, right? So muscle move adds more unit as needed, right? So if it's like I've started walking, so initially the load is going to be carried by my smaller motor unit, right? It's the size principle for walk. You just need smaller motor units, you need smaller signals, you need fast twitch, I'll say slow twitch muscle fibers, right? But as I start increasing the speed, this transition is going to happen, right? From the small motor units to eventually to the large motor units, right? Uh, so depending on the intensity of the exercise, the motor units recruited will be different, right? For something that's high speed, high force production, your body will rely on your fast twitch muscle fibers. For that, it will be recruiting the fast, I will say, bigger motor neurons or bigger size uh, signals, right? So I would say bigger size signals that will help you produce more force, right, in short period of time, right? So to prevent use full force when it's not required, right? So this is also important. Body always starts with slow to, I would say, small to big, because they want to ensure that you're not using your fast twitch or your first bigger signals, right? Because that will result into fatiguing too faster, right? So this is again, brain controls how many motor units to activate, right? So if it's more effort, more motor units are recruited, right? If it's less effort, like walking, sitting, standing, less motor units are recruited, right? So now what happens while you train, right? What happens while you train? So if you're not conditioned, your reflexes, your reactions will be slower, right? So now what happens, people who are conditioned, your body, your brain or body learns to skip, right? So now if it's small to big, and if I'm a conditioned athlete, my body can simply skip the small and recruit the large, right? So that's really important when it comes to participating in sports like sprint, javelin throw, power output, high power output, right? Because that's when you don't want from the small to big, right? That is where you want is the high, I would say, large motor neurons to be activated uh, first, right? You don't want to follow that small to big, right? Because it's about high power outputs. You want to recruit the right. It's like sending your army for a war, right? You want to send the right recruit to ensure that you come up winning. So this was it for this chapter, guys. I hope you are liking my videos. Do like and subscribe and share. Thank you so much.